This is a Deluxe Reverb from late 68 onwards. I imagine 68 through 70, 71 maybe. I'll know more when I open it up. I last had this amp about 10 years ago, and for whatever reason, I cannot find the records I keep on this amp. I've got records going on amps back 15, 20 years, but I can't find this one, so let's see what's going on. Anyway, it's been about 10 years, and it's only now developed a problem, and the owner says it's noisy on both channels or with the volumes off, and that's all I've got. So let's see what noisy is. I'm going to power it on using my light bulb limiter, and I've got the volumes off and the reverb off, tone stacks at noon, tremolo off. Let's see what it sounds like. All right, now it's beginning to make some sound. All right, kind of a staticky background hiss. Volume pot needs to be cleaned a little bit, no big deal. Serious noises in the reverb recovery. And that pot's dirty. Sometimes just turning the pot can work that out. When I open it up, I'll give it a clean. All right, so let me turn this around. I'm going to take the rear panel off. We'll do a quick tap test. That rectifier tube is just barely hanging in there. That needs a bear trap. Is it the tube or the socket that's so loose? Let's look into that while this thing hasn't gotten so hot to burn our fingers. That socket is mechanically loose in its frame. When I open it up, I'll see what I can do about that. But this thing was just barely hanging in there. It was, that much was visible. Bring this back up. While it's warming back up, I'm going to take the tube shields off. Ruby, Chinese, tungsol, Chinese, tungsol, Chinese. Output tubes look good in terms of no metal spatter on the inside. Loose socket. $1.50 bear trap might fix that. If not, the socket's $3. It's easy to change out a rectifier socket. Now I have a suspicion that it might just be V4. V4 is the reverb mixer and the recovery stage for the reverb. So all that noise we're hearing in that reverb might just be a bad tube. And if that's the case, then that tube's going to have a high noise floor, which is going to be feeding the phase inverter, even with the channel volume for the reverb channel off. So let me put it in standby so you don't hear a big pop. And put in this known good JJ. Still hearing a little bit of noise. But all the rushing water is gone from the reverb, but we have a hiss in the reverb. So it's very possible that the Chinese Ruby was bad and that there's a problem in that channel. Let me try that now with the tube shield. Slightly less hiss, but there's still more hiss than I'd like. So it's time to open this up. Give me just a second, I'll pull this chassis. Well, it's 1969, which is what made sense given the cosmetics. And whatever the problem is, it's not going to be these filter caps. These F&Ts that I did about 10 years ago are holding up great. Probably another 10 years before they need to be thought about changing them out again. So let's look on the inside. Now, looking through this amp for the first time in 10 years, you can see this is not what I'm using currently for such components, but it's not too far off. So a drifted resistor, bad resistor, or DC on the board, those are the most likely suspects. With the amp powered off, let's take some measurements. So the mixer stage plate, 102.4K. The reverb plate, 96.4. Everything's very healthily in spec so far. 28. So that's actually kind of high there, that 28. That tail should be 22K. Aside from this one resistor, everything's measuring great. Let me check the bias leaks here. That's good. All right, so we've got a tail resistor that's gone from 22K to 28K. That's out of spec. Everything else is looking all right. I forgot to measure this cathode, didn't I? That's right on spec, 2.7. So I don't think we're going to have any problems with any of the resistors except for that tail. And I want to change out the octal socket for the rectifier, but that can wait a bit. Let's turn it back on and see what voltages we have on the board. All right, the plate here, 183 on the board next to it, nothing. See on these caps, nothing. Nothing. Normal channel output, nothing. Good. Here on the vibrato channel, 173. 165, nothing. Let's do this critical joint that's often a problem in these things. 10 millivolts, perfect. That's almost unavoidable after a decade passes with that eyelet being so close to the B+ eyelet here, which has 262 volts on it. Let's see, this is going to be noisy. Let's see what this sounds like. No voltage, so that's good. And there's no output of any background noise now. Boy, that rectifier is wobbly. We hook up a reverb tank, otherwise we're just going to get this noise. Actually, it's not as bad as I thought. Hear that putita? That's the Wi-Fi router. If I put the tube shields on, that'll go away. Talked about that a few days ago, but that noise is gone now. All right, so that's with the JJ in V4. Let's test our hypothesis and put that Chinese generic Ruby back in place. Huh. It's noisier, but it's nowhere like the noise this amp had when we first powered it on. In fact, this amp sounds quite good. I don't have the mic on the cab that I usually have right now because I was set up to record that super reverb, but you'll still hear it in the room. Plug a guitar in. I'm not crazy, right? We had a lot of noise, and it's gone away now. It's possible that there was just oxidization, corrosion in the tube socket. Just changing the tube a few times took care of that. It's also possible that the rectifier tube being barely plugged in might have contributed to that, but usually that's more of an it works or it doesn't kind of thing. Let's see the normal channel. Well, overall, the amp is sounding really good, and frustratingly, the noise level has dropped significantly from how it was. And I cannot tell you why, though I suspect it might just be having removed and reinserted a couple tubes here in V4. This is the Chinese one, which is a little bit noisier than the JJ. So I'm going to put in the JJ in a little bit. But first, I want to just pull tubes until the noise goes silent. Because if all of a sudden I pull this tube and the noise goes away, you know. So let's start on the right with V1. There may be some pops because I'm doing this with the amp out in play, not in standby. Background unaffected. Silent. Okay, it's got a Thsinde 5751 there. And we had a Ruby 12AX7 in V1. Let's put this 12AX7 in V2, see if the noise comes back, or whether it's a noisy Thsinde. That socket needs to be cleaned. About the same as far as noise goes. Let me get that JJ. Given how noisy the sockets are, just staticky as I insert or wiggle, thinking that a good socket cleaning might be the trick here. Yeah, all three tubes are about the same, but that staticky sound tells me that pins are dirty. And then if I pull V3, should be no change. No. Pull V4, it should go silent. It does. So I've got a game plan at least. I'm going to clean all the tube sockets, and I'm going to change out the rectifier socket. See where we're at after that. So give me a few. So I've changed out this octal socket, and I installed it with some 1N4007 diodes in series just to make current production rectifier tubes last longer. And this one's got a bear trap. And I have bear traps I could install here and here, but these old 6v6s, as you can see, have coin bases, not thick bases. So if I put bear traps to be grabbing the glass, that's a no-no. But I'm going to be keeping a close watch on these 6v6s as I run this amp for a few hours, because it's really hard to see, but there are little bitty spatters, little bitty ones on the inside of the glass where the plates are on both sides. So these tubes may not be 100%. We'll keep an eye on that. All the preamp tube sockets have been cleaned and dried, and a lot of old orange stuff came out of them. So let's see if this sounds any better now. Well, I think I might have cracked it, but I'm going to let this run for a couple hours at least, just to see if anything comes back or any issues come back. And I've got to keep an eye on those 6v6s with those little bitty flecks on the inside of the glass. So not done, but I don't see a discrete problem. I see, so far it seems that everything just needed to be cleaned. Had a loose tube socket, and I cleaned all the preamp pots. Oh, I forgot to mention. So I'm not going to be changing out this tail resistor in the phase inverter that measures 28K, because on closer inspection, it's a 27 or 28K. It's not a 22K that drifted. And as I recall from 10 years ago, the original resistor was 22K and had drifted to about 27, 28K. And the owner really liked the sound, but that resistor was in bad shape because a 22K resistor that has measured as high as 27, 28K is failing. It's on its way out. But he liked the sound, so I locked it in place with a new 27, 28K resistor. I'm red green colorblind, forgive me. So the color bands don't help me. So I locked in the drifted sound with a new component that was at the magic value, so it can stay. So you may see another video on this amp if I find anything that, goes south. This may be the last you see of it on the channel, but for myself, it's nice to see work I did 10 years ago holding up where I'm not going to say, what the hell was I thinking? So, sometimes when you see early examples of your work, you cringe, and I don't see any cringe here. Thanks for watching.